exploration among her basic research has been going on during war, during peace, and during all times. In fact, it is very well known that when Napoleon invaded Germany or Prussia at that time, Sophia, this young lady from Paris, Sophie Germain, she got very worried that Gauss would be killed exactly in the manner in which Archimedes was killed by the enemy soldiers. And she wrote a letter to Napoleon asking that Gauss should not be harmed. One of her uncles, who was a general in French army, went and visited Gauss to tell him that no harm will be done to him. And yet, Gauss did not know who Sophie Germain was, because the lady had to assume a male name to be able to benefit from the lessons being given at the old Polytechnic. So these and many other such things have convinced us to prepare our next science outreach on international collaboration, which is science beyond borders and which is most essential for world peace. Now with that diversion, let me come back to my presentation today. Dr. Sinha asked me specifically to review the photon work we have done together. And that is what I will do. I will tell you the story of how Dr. Sinha led us into light. And Federico is not there, but yesterday when I was loading this, he says, "Oh, I read that you have written Tamsoma Jyotir Gaman." So I was very impressed. The only other person who could read a little bit of Sanskrit is Paulo. And so, okay. So by now we know that it is very well accepted. We have heard it again and again that the universe started in a Big Bang, and then at some stage of a few microseconds after Big Bang, it was in form of argon plasma, which expanded, cooled, became hadron, and then expanded and expanded and expanded, and they are here. Now, if we were to run this reel backwards, then we could reach argon plasma, and by now we also know that we can produce it either by increasing the pressure or by heating it. And this is what Johannes Brock just explained that they have been doing. But there is a problem here that the QG could be formed, expand, cool, and transform into hadrons, undergo a phase transition into hadrons. And during this process, only photons, real or virtual, would escape unmolested from the system. And that is how the realization dawned on many that direct photons, real or virtual or penetrating probe, but bulk matter producing hadronic collision, but simple reason that they do not interact strongly and they have a large reaching path. So this realization started a relentless effort by researchers from across the world who have established photons as a reliable source of thought and expansion. So during this talk, we shall separate some of the seven photon work initiated and led by the laid the foundation of this vibrant field in the world, in the country. this is very well known that the two nuclei are selected by surge, they will come, they will collide over here. From the beginning, they will count photons, it will be produced. Due to by annihilation alpha 1 scattering, there will be a pre-equilibrium phase, then with there will be some emission of photons, then there will be hadronic and two-leaf and hadronic pair, then lot of decay photons to be emitted from pi 0 and decay. Direct photons, as we call them, which are not decay photons, they have different sources, and all the sources will have different flow. You will have the ground photons, you will have the pre-equilibrium photons, you will have the forward plasma photons, and you will have hadronic gas photons. And then it will be also found that jets passing through the forward plasma can also produce photons. And that is jet effect. But the photons which you will see, single photons you will see at the end, they will be obtained by convoluting the emissions from the entire history of the nuclear collision. So we shall need rates and models of for the evolution of the system to calculate them. And several models by now are available. Hydrodynamic models, about which we heard a lot from Lejo, cascades, known here, fireballs was mentioned, and now of course the state of the art is that in the beginning you have cascades, and then you have hydrodynamics, and then you have cascades again. So this was mentioned by Larry. This is his first paper, styled by Vikas of the universal signal of organic plasma. And I told you about this convolution of rates from different stages. But then here in this work is showed that the ratio of production rates of photons and dielectrons, I0 and dielectrons from quark-gluon plasma are independent of the space-time evolution of the fireball and thus universal signal of the plasma. Now, it is not showing here, but I have put a comment in my slide somewhere that this paper also started the legendary friendship between Vikas and Larry Macrocosmos, which was going to be very valuable for the start of UGP's ICPA series of conferences and many other collaborations here. Now, this happened in August. And people of that generation may remember that Ian Anderson introduced lines are stepping to joy, walk into light. Never mind what some people see. They are going to love you anyway. And this is what is happening. In the beginning, people ridiculed us. Photons, you cannot measure them. They are too little. They are too few. They are all buried under pi 0 decay. You will not be able to see. And now, those are the most reliable probes for giving you the initial temperature. And in fact, this has a parallel. Long ago in the Upanishad, it was mentioned that the face of truth is covered with a brilliant golden light. That down to remove. So experiment is to remove that brilliant golden lid of decay photons because the truth, golden photons coming out from the quark-gluon plasma are hidden behind the intense radiation of decay photons. And that is what the experimentists have succeeded and given us immense joy. there are two distinct moments or movements. There was the International Conference on Physics and Astrophysics of plasma in 1988 in Mumbai. It was to become a regular and eagerly awaited future, and for reasons best known to us, it has not been held for some years, and there is very high time. I keep getting requests that it should be held now, but of course, and then there was this plasma, Barbara Desser, showed in her talk, Winter School in Puri, Odisha, 1989, December 5 to 16. That brought out this lecture notes, and it featured excellent pedagogic lectures by Charles Alcock, Frank Grohl, Jitel Parekh, Narayan Rana, Robert Brockman, and most importantly by Robert Prasad. Those were 2 weeks of sheer pleasure for us. And it was to develop into the most important introduction to the field, to a generation of practitioners of field of plasma and related to Fabian collisions, including yours. In fact, after that, whenever students joined us, this was the first book we gave them to read and work out everything. And then they never ever needed any other further introduction. Okay. What were the challenges? The challenges, as I already told, the thermal photons are too few. And in fact, at that time, they were supposed to come only from quark-gluon plasma phase. Is there other photons from hadronic reactions? It was not known. And then plasma will evolve in 3 plus 1 dimensions, not only 1 plus 1 dimension, which was being assumed by Bjorken at that time. All these things were going to take place, and we succeeded in developing all of them one by one. Now what? So we calculated photons only from quark matter, but we assumed that there is a first order phase transition, so there will be some quark matter also in the mixed phase. So we calculated photons from that also. And tried to get, these are the first initial baby steps we took to put it on a thermal coating. These were decay photons, and these were photons only from quark matter. Just for a comparison, those are multiplied by 1 by 10. So to say that what is going to be the order of magnitude, you have to eliminate the background of decay photons has to be eliminated. Then here, in this work, we are at Berkeley, and between Berkeley and VC, we included all thermal photons in these calculations. And then we had an estimate using Huygens, all photons, and in this we had just excluded pi 0 to 2 gamma. So if we could exclude decay photons or take out decay photons, we would get comparable numbers very close to at low PT, and then it was giving an indication that we may have some such thing here. By then, Compton and annihilation processes were there, hadronic reactions were decided that these reactions would contribute quite a lot. And a wonderful paper was written by Kapusta, Lichard, and Sebert, and they found that if you calculate the rates of production of thermal photons from quark-gluon plasma and hadronic matter at the same temperature, then they are very close to each other. Now, this is a wonderful result, but it also created some doubt on the efficacy of photons in describing hadronic matter. hard in distinguishing hadronic matter and quark. And that is what, this is where we had this first very valuable collaboration. So the Raha there, yes, is there. He would tell how to proceed, and our colleague Samad Chakravarti, unfortunately we lost him, Jane Alam and Dr. Sinha, of course, we reproduced. First thing we did was to fully reproduce the results of Joe Acosta and his colleagues, and then told that demonstrated that if there is a quark-1 plasma formation, the quark matter will be at higher initial temperature, hadronic matter will be at lower temperature, and therefore the quark matter photons will be still outside the photons from the hadronic matter. So they will continue to give you information about quark-1 plasma. But of course, by then we also realized that for single photons would be single photons, and we should not hesitate, we should not distinguish between direct photons from hadronic matter and quark-1 plasma. And then Larry again helped us to get hydrodynamic sport from Wayside Osmanen. They had already developed the hydrodynamic sport for 2+1 dimensional hydrodynamic sport. We obtained that. We modified it to have a much more richer equation of state, because those are the days the hadronic matter used to be assumed to be consisting of only massless ions. So we expanded that, and we took massive pi, rho, omega, eta, calculated then we obtained the solution and obtained the predictions for thermal photons and SPS, RIG, and LSC. These were the first calculation of thermal photons, including rich equation of state. And then, by then, there was this preliminary result from sulfur and gold, which we analyzed using two different assumptions. In one assumption, we assumed that there is no quark hadron phase transition, and then we got very large production of photons. And in this second calculation, we said there is a quark hadron phase transition, and then we were able to get, we got these results. Now, we had used the equation of state, we had used 2+1 dimensional expansion, we had all these things. Now, I would like to say something here. At that time, the computational facilities at VC were very limited. We had we were living in those technology denial regime, and somehow we had gotten a small NOTS data 540 or 640 computer for analysis, and these calculations were taking several hours. So I ultimately booked the computer only for myself for whole night, and the computer had to be run on diesel generator because the power supply was very bad. So computer running on diesel generator, leakage was working during the night, walking in BEC campus and waiting for the results to come, and that is how this result was obtained. Now the problem is that nuclear physicists are not allowed to use preliminary data. Only particle physicists are allowed to use preliminary data. They can write millions of papers with the 750 GeV Higgs boson, superluminar neutrinos, and whatnot. But nuclear physics, oh no, this is preliminary data, this is rocket science. We were abused. And I presented this thing at quark matter. They poured SHIT on us. And yet, the data became upper limit. But the results held. Many people tried to repeat this calculation, and they always came to the same thing, that even the upper limit cannot be explained if you don't assume if you don't assume a quark gluon plasma phase transition. Okay. The same when this paper was published, it sought the Surya telephone. I had never received a telephone from Israel by then. In fact, Indians were perhaps not known. There was no diplomatic relation between India and Israel at that time. There was only some kind of council access. Then Isaac Surya telephoned me, and those are days when there was the telephone connections used to be very bad. And he just told me that, can you use exactly the same initial conditions, exactly the same model, and calculate dielectron production, which we have measured. So he went on giving instructions on how to, what are the cuts, and then we obtained this result. We did not use any detector resolution, so you see the high peak. And what was important is that even though the data, the results were in kind of qualitative agreement, we completely missed this. Which is this missing was the basis for providing explanation of dielectron access there and demonstration of the widening of pro peak in this reaction. Okay. By then, additional results came up, and Patrick Coramont did these calculations, and WA98 results came up. This result for WA98 were used. We had analyzed it, and this was used for announcement of discovery of Palwar plasma. So this was, as far as we were concerned, in our heart, in the heart of our heart, we had no hesitation, absolutely no hesitation, that the Palwar plasma formation has taken place. In the same again, we were approached and asked to look at the NFFT data for dielectron. Using the description we had used for legal net data, and we got the result. It gave a small contribution for thermal dielectrons. Okay. So this was SPS. Then I'm going fast to slow down. By then, thermal photons from the root arrived, and a large number of theoretical calculations were done, and we also got lost somewhere in this. So we are there. The LSC 2.76 TeV data arrived. And at that time, they said, okay,